Welcome to episode 34 of the Thodcast. Thank you for joining us. The Thodcast, conversations about animation. I'm your host, Philip Elke, and today I'm joined from Minnesota by my co-host, Hannah Lee Smart. How are you doing?
Hi, everyone. I'm doing great and so ready to be back on the Thodcast. Thanks for having me, Philip.
Happy Independence Day if you're listening in the United States. Happy Stranger Things season 3 for everyone else. I maybe that isn't releasing worldwide on the 4th too, but I know that comes out today, the day that this episode releases, July 4th, 2019. And today we're not actually reviewing a movie, Hannah. We're just going to be talking about some news updates. Mainly Frozen 2 news, but there's also some other big things shaking around out there in the world of animation, Disney princesses, what? Yeah, so all that coming up and more. Hannah, what do you think of the new Little Mermaid announcement?
Okay, so Ariel is my favorite princess. And so I am very, very both excited and a little shocked by their casting choices, as I think everyone is. But I honestly love it. And I remember, just in comparison, not because of anything, just because, when they did Cinderella with like the Brandy Cinderella, I thought they did a really great job in that film with like colorblind casting. So I think it's very interesting and I'm very ready to have that be something that the world sees more of. We actually talked about this in one of our acting classes during college when I was a theater major. For those of you that don't know, I'm sure nobody does because I'm not like famous or anything. So nobody knows who I am. Anyways, colorblind casting is something that I think is really important and really an integral part of the theater community, and young children are already obsessed with Ariel. I've loved Ariel my whole life. She's definitely my favorite princess, hands down, because who wouldn't love a mermaid that's like a double princess, land and sea? But I've always loved that movie, and I really hope that they bring more elements into this, and I'm really interested in their casting choices, and I think that they're so far so good to me, and I think that everyone should be open-minded because The Little Mermaid is a fable and popularly misconstrued to think that Disney came up with The Little Mermaid, but actually it's not really Disney's at all. It was borrowed, as most of their stories are. And I think that I'm ready for it. And I think it's really, really great. And I'm really excited. And when I heard the news today, I was just ecstatic. I thought it was wonderful and that she has a great voice and it'll be an interesting film and it'll be a great acting opportunity.
Yes, singer-actress Halle Bailey, part of the R&B duo Chloe and Halle. I don't know anything about them, but she definitely looks the part. Of course, she sort of differs from the original Disney conception of Ariel, where Ariel's definitely Caucasian with bright red hair. Let's see, Halle Bailey is African American, I believe. So I'm guessing
that could be the biggest issue in this is kind of like, all right, not a big deal. So,
well, I mean, is she going to have the red hair? I'm just hoping that we see some cool hair, but they could change that up too. I mean, I'm sure they'll make it work.
She posted an animation on her Instagram that I saw today, which was Ariel on the rock. People can go look. I can look at her handle later on, but she posted something and it didn't have red hair in that animation. Her Instagram is Chloe, CHLOEX, the letter, and then HALLE. So on that Instagram, they posted this picture, which is here, I'll show it to you.
I'm looking at it now. Yeah, it's definitely just a black Ariel.
Yeah,
with black hair.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think her African-American heritage won't really play into this, and I really hope that Disney doesn't really choose to focus on it, because as audience members, we are focusing on it because it's different to us, which is okay to mention, but I think a lot of people are a little more offended than I think is necessary, because it's not necessary. Yeah. But red hair to me would be really fun because that's so iconic, and I'm more concerned about the hair, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine whatever way they go, because I don't have a whole lot of attachment to these live action remakes. I'm fine with them kind of putting whatever spin they want, because we'll always have the original animated versions, and I like to see them kind of do new things with these rather than just make them into a bit of a rehash. These animated stories are already derivative of popular tales and folklore or other works. So why not go more to the original source material, kind of like what you were saying, rather than just pilfer from the Disney versions. Of course, I imagine this live action Little Mermaid will stick closer to the Disney Little Mermaid than like the original Hans Christian Andersen novel. But yeah, with a little bit of different twist, in that the casting is definitely meant to to be noteworthy in the casting of a new African American princess, and that's pretty great. So yeah, you mentioned the Brandy Cinderella from I believe the late '90s. That was made for TV, Disney Cinderella adaptation. So what wasn't that like based on the Rodgers and Hammerstein version?
Right.
Cinderella?
But it was like produced, but it was like before live action was even a term, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I know because I asked my grandma and my mom about it when this happened. I just happened to see them today when the stuff came out, and I was like, wow. And my mom remembered people saying, well, why doesn't she look like the cartoon? And I feel like when someone has a conception of what something's going to look like, they're going to be questioning it. But honestly, Lindsay Lohan, you're not going to get the part. I know that was a big thing on Twitter. And I think so far so good for me with Disney. So I really trust them with this. And I think that colorblind casting is the way to go. And it's a great opportunity for actors to kind of expand their horizons. And I don't know. I think it'll be good.
All right. Well, the live action Little Mermaid comes out when 2020, directed by Rob Marshall. So it's Little Mermaid. I'm trying to find it here. Mermaid. Man, do they even have?
It's pretty hush hush, I think.
Yeah.
There's lots of like rumored casting. I know the Melissa McCarthy news just came out saying that. So I think it's a little hush hush, but I mean, they know.
Yeah. No confirmation yet on release date. So stay tuned for that. We were here to talk about Frozen news, the Thodcast, largely inspired by our love of Frozen among all other works of animation, and especially Disney animation. And we kind of wanted to have a little roundtable discussion on this show based around some of the new developments. So I think we might just get into some of those. We were hoping to have Jody join us, but she was unavailable at the moment. She could perhaps drop in later on in the show. But for now, we are happy to have you here with us, Hannah, to share your insight, because you didn't join us you haven't actually been on any of our Frozen updates.
Right.
So this will be a little Frozen corner featuring Hannah. Oh man, we're obsessed. Frozen for me is like therapy, and deals with a lot of the same subjects surrounding fear and anxiety, and I don't know, overcoming internal obstacles in one's life. Metaphor, with a magical metaphor.
We have always feared Elsa's powers were too much for this world. Now we must hope they are enough.
I won't let anything happen to her.
We find out in the new Frozen, they are introducing more elements to the magic system. And it's not just going to feature ice magic, but also fire magic, earth magic, and air. So basically, the four elements of antiquity, the four primal, I don't know, sources of power, water, earth, fire, and air. Very familiar to people who are fans of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Those will play a role in this new film. So first off, Hannah, want to get your perspective on the new trailer that came out for Frozen 2, and curious if you are familiar with Avatar: The Last Airbender or anything of that nature.
So I am probably, and don't hate me, podcasters, probably the only person on earth that fell asleep the first time I watched Avatar, and I never rewatched it.
So is this the James Cameron Avatar that you're talking about? Okay.
You're talking about like the show with like the okay, that makes a lot more sense. I was like, what are you talking about, Philip? I don't get it. They're not blue.
So animation.
Yeah. So Avatar, like the show that my brothers made me watch. Yeah. Okay, I get it.
The Nickelodeon show. I mean, fans of animation, are familiar with the show as being one of the better produced. I mean,
oh my goodness.
Yeah. So you've seen Avatar: The Last Airbender on Nickelodeon. It did get a movie adaptation.
And a younger brother. Mm-hmm. So I've seen all of the quote unquote boy shows. Okay. I was more of like, I loved all of, Powerpuff Girls was probably the most action show that I watched. Otherwise, I was all about Rugrats, those kind of things. But so Avatar: The Last Airbender, I'm glad that the animation is not that of Avatar: The Last Airbender, because I wasn't quite interested in that type of animation. But it was fun to watch, and I mean, it was my childhood essentially was watching, fighting over the remote Avatar when I lost.
It's a subject we'll definitely cover more on the show. My brother and I are huge fans of the series as well as its follow-up. The Legend of Korra, we even did cosplay for The Legend of Korra.
Wow!
Yeah. An epic series that has its own fantasy elements and its, magic system and intriguing world. It told in a linear style, of course, the first series, Avatar: The Last Airbender, ran for 3 seasons and wrapped up in a nice arc at the end, much like, say, the Star Wars trilogy or Lord of the Rings trilogy. It definitely had a very delineated 3-part structure. And it looks like it's going to be getting a live action series adaptation coming on Netflix that the original creators are involved in. More on that, but the reason we're bringing that up here is because it was revealed at Annecy Animation Festival in France, Annecy, France. It's kind of an odd. It doesn't sound right when I say it that way. Annecy, like like you're jittery. But apparently Annecy, maybe that's a bit more, formal sounding.
We'll have to find out. If you're right.
I researched the pronunciation before recording, and it's something like that. Annecy.
If you're French, follow the thought pattern on Instagram. I'll follow up how to say it.
Yeah, any attempt I make to pronounce anything French, I'm sure it would be, denounced as utterly.
They'd find out you weren't
French. They would find out I'm not French. But yeah, so Disney Animation always has a presence at this festival that's held every year. They featured a bunch of their short, kind of experimental films. It's more of an experimental type film festival, not totally mainstream. Although they did showcase some new footage from Frozen 2 at Annecy, and that gives us quite a bit more information on what to expect from the film. In addition to the recent trailer that was released in mid-June. So on June 14th, Becky Breezy, the head of animation for Frozen 2, as well as Marlon West, the head of effects, presented scenes from Frozen 2, including explaining the film's opening, in which wasn't shown, but they say that the king, King Agnar, as he's named online. I don't know if that's his official name or not, King Agnar. If you read some of the runes that you can see in the film, that's how they translate. Whether that's the name they'll go with in the sequel is up in the air. But we find out he regales the girls with lavish bedtime story from his youth when the young prince himself visited an enchanted elemental forest before something went horribly wrong, and he was quickly brought back to Arendelle. Since then, there has been a disconnect between the people of the town and the elements: air, fire, water, and earth. So, yeah, what do you think of that, Hannah?
So I have two thoughts that I'm ready to share. First of all, I am so glad that we're finally getting to know the parents, because last time all he did was lock her in a room, tell her not to come out, tell her to control her powers, which, like, come on, daddy, make it, like, help her figure it out. Don't just tell her, oh, wear these gloves, like, you're good. But I'm glad that we're getting to see the parents before they die halfway through in a shipwreck or whatever you believe they're Tarzan's parents. That's another podcast, another day. But so I'm glad that we got to see the parents, long story short there. And then with the air, fire, water, earth thing, I am honestly shocked. I would have never thought that that was going to be. And I feel like through these clips and through these different trailers, we've learned more and more. And I loved that they were sharing nothing. And now it seems like they're sharing more. And, the movie doesn't come out for a long time, so I'm sure they're going to share enough with us, even though they know everyone's going to see it far before then. So now they're just building on They Said Nothing. And now there's a story and there's more elements literally introduced. So I'm excited about it. And I think the air, fire, water, and earth thing only confuses me because now everyone's talking about Anna having powers, and why wasn't this ever a subject? So I feel like kind of like Disney's coming out of left field, like whatever that sports term is. And I don't understand that part. But I think it's interesting, and I also think that the town being so fearful of it might be kind of similar to what's like the moonshine era, where like nobody liked alcohol and then people are still doing it.
Prohibition.
That's it.
And you got cut off a little bit during the sports analogy. We say they were punting on that, or
I just feel like they were like out of left field.
Oh,
like,
out of left field.
Why did they do that? Yeah, but anyways, yeah. So Arendelle, to me, was in like the Prohibition era, right? And I'm so confused. And then Elsa freezes it all, and now everyone's skipping across water with their ass powers.
Like magical prohibition?
Yeah, it's like you can't use magic. You can use magic. What's going on? Let's figure it out. Yeah. Oh, this girl has ice powers. We're doomed. She's a monster. She's not a monster.
So and as listeners may know, I'm very obsessed with Frozen, and I project a lot onto it, more so than I think a lot of people who are kind of confused by some of the plot elements that establish, Elsa and her isolation, her relationship to her parents, and so forth. The magic, as far as like the acceptance by the broader populace of magic, seems to mirror like what was the perception of the time of like the classical era, pre-Victorian era, of like people just being very superstitious, magic being and witchcraft being super taboo. Right. So it makes sense that they would want to hide something like that away, if we're simply going by the existing historical context. In the world of Frozen, things could be different. People could be more accepting of magic. I mean, it takes place in Scandinavia, where people are more accepting of everything. So, they're good Scandinavian folk. They're not going to judge you too harshly if you come out, displaying these, crazy paranormal abilities. Although, word could get around, and maybe other kingdoms might not take so too kindly to this notion of a witch running a country. And so they might, stage an invasion or something along those lines. So I was very intrigued by that concept of, maybe this isn't such a great thing politically for the nation of Arendelle to have, a member of the royal family being so, powerful in the practice of magic. But maybe magic, well, yeah, it's hard to say how accepting or understanding of magic people are. I'm guessing there is sort of a taboo surrounding it because, this article explains that there is a disconnect between the people and the elements. So what do you think about that?
I think it's interesting, and I'm curious to learn more as to what was it? Like, what was the big thing that happened that made him have to come back? And does the dad have magical powers that I'll get to learn about? And is he like
yeah,
in the water? That's what I'm thinking. Harry Potter style. What's it called? Their Patronus or Patronum?
Oh, yes.
Their Jonas brother.
Yeah. Well, there's that horse spirit that looks like a Patronus in the trailer. Yeah. It's actually called...
the first thing I thought about. I was like, oh my God, it's Sirius Black.
Yeah.
It's Harry's dad.
I don't know if any of the characters in the books have horse Patronuses, but I'm sure there is someone out there. It's called a neck, and it's a water spirit that usually takes the form of a horse. There's indication in the trailer that this water spirit is just part of a group of spirits that come to sort of haunt Elsa, or I guess come alongside Elsa.
Yeah, that was like a little much for me. I was like, these kids watching this movie are going to be delirious.
I mean, it doesn't seem like there'll be a lot of human threat to deal with in this film, but I'm down for some crazy supernatural forces.
And it's so not Disney. It's so interesting to me. I'm like, what is going on? But I'm obsessed with it.
Oh, well.
Also, do you think it has anything to do with, I don't know if you know this, but if you listen to like the recording of like Robert Lopez explaining the extended soundtrack of Frozen, as a music person, obviously, I bought it like the day it came out. I was like, oh my gosh, Christoph Beck.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with these extended.
So they talk about the prophecy that was going to be in the first movie, but then they didn't have like the prophecy little spring program thing, which I'm wondering if that was in the first movie, would they have been able to do this in this direction? Or is the prophecy, because the prophecy was that someone will come out and freeze Arendelle, which is exactly what Elsa did, that there will be like this monster, little plug to the Broadway show. But I think it's so interesting to me that if the prophecy was never in the first one, are they going to bring it up in the second one? And is this horse part of the prophecy? Or is the prophecy something that happened and that's why they're coming back? Because he knew he had powers and then Elsa had powers. I thought she was prophecy.
Well, I'm not a big fan of the idea of the prophecy. And I'm kind of glad that they got rid of it. But I also think that there is a chance that that could play a role. And like, I became a fan of the prophecy idea when I read about this event in European history called the Year Without Summer, which took place in, I believe, 1816. It was just an unseasonably cold year it's referenced in the movie Arthur Christmas, but like it came as a result of a volcanic eruption that produced a year where there was in extreme famine throughout Europe, and so say this event were prophesied, and that at the end of it, a child would be born with magical powers over ice and would become queen. I thought that would be a cool idea for a prophecy because it could tie in some actual like real world events, but it would be very specific to ice, and we know now that it's not just ice powers that we're dealing with, but also air, water, and earth, and fire. I guess ice and water sort of go hand in hand. Yeah, so do you think, Hannah, that Elsa can control all four elements?
I'm kind of hoping that she meets people that are the other elements, and it almost like makes her whole, because I feel like she's never belonged. But if she does have all of the elements and she doesn't know about it yet, that's why I'm so confused, because she could never control her ice powers and she was embarrassed of them. So wouldn't she have experienced these other powers unless she hasn't become them yet, I guess? I don't know. I don't really know how I feel about it, but I don't think that she has them. That's my speculation, is that there's other people and she's going to meet the fire guy, the Human Torch, if you will.
Yeah. Maybe there's just something really innate about ice and not even water. Like we never see her manipulate water itself.
Right.
So
that's interesting. Like she is the like fifth unexplored element or something.
Well, maybe because she's always approached her powers kind of from like a fear perspective. Maybe ice is like one of the easier things to master, because all you need is to like really, I don't know, clench your potential.
So insightful, because think about when she melted the ice. It was the act of true love. She learned to melt the ice.
Mm-hmm.
So she does things besides melt the ice. Wow, you're a genius.
Yeah. So perhaps ice itself, because whenever we're afraid, like we feel, our spines, tingle, and like
you're changing my life right now.
There's a cold, sensation that we feel when we're afraid. So. And of course, Arendelle is in a northerly climate, so ice would be kind of a natural occurrence.
Also, we're going to go to Bora Bora to look and like become the fire in the earth. Oh, sorry.
But I don't know. I feel like if Elsa, because I don't personally like the idea of Elsa being a master of more than just ice or water. It just seems a little too OP to borrow a term from tabletop role playing. But like it could be that she's required to master the four elements in order to fight off this supernatural force. It could be explained that these runic characters as in like letters, symbols, that show up during, I believe it looks like a musical number. They start to appear all around the kingdom, just in midair, and they contain these symbols that represent the four elements. And when that event occurs, maybe that's when Elsa is like given power over other elements, because this ties into the clips that they showed at Annecy, the first of which is a scene where Anna, Elsa, Kristoff, and Olaf and Sven are engaged in a less than fair game of charades. Anna starts and successfully play acts the word villain, quickly guessed by the other players. Olaf heads to the front and declares the next round as boys versus girls, before adeptly transforming himself into a series of instantly recognizable forms each guest, each guest almost immediately by Kristoff and prompting Anna to accuse the two of cheating. So I guess he does multiple charades in succession. That doesn't seem like I don't like charades personally. Party games aren't my forte.
Yeah, when you do charades, I'm pretty sure you just get your one pick of the litter, and then you move on. It's the next
Olaf's
Olaf.
Olaf's trying to change the rules on the fly. But okay, so Elsa eventually has her turn, but she's distracted by a haunting voice that only she can hear, and excuses herself to her room to be alone. And the scene ends there. So this voice she starts to hear could be the beginning of her discovering new powers, perhaps, or at least discovering the need to journey to this, mysterious land where her powers originated.
Yeah, I think it's really, really interesting that she might have also like her powers didn't just like she didn't just have them. I feel like it's like a thing.
That's one thing I wouldn't have minded if it were simply left unexplained as to how she received her powers. Do you agree?
I kind of don't want to know.
Yeah.
I just want her to exist and have them. And I think she is such, kind of what you were saying earlier, she's such a relatable character in that, like, she has all these inner demons, and the ice kind of is her outward way of showing her, inner fears and struggles. And, like, that's a lot of why people like her, because they do think that she has all these different stresses and forms and all of these things. And I kind of don't want her to have to explain herself. And I don't want them to feel like she needs to be explained. I want her to be able to live her life.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they're going in that direction, but they could still leave plenty of mystery surrounding her abilities.
I love the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you can also read fanfics on the internet, which are a fun past tense, present tense of mine, or whatever you call it.
Yeah, well, yeah, they're doing their supernatural thriller this time around, but maybe next time it'll all be more focused on, like, battling other kingdoms that see her as a threat, and she can go all badass, just not have to explain herself.
In Frozen 5.
What's that?
They can tell me about her powers in Frozen 5.
Well,
and I'll say, okay, I'm ready now. But Frozen 2, I'm not ready yet.
Yeah, looks like we won't have much of a choice. But you said that you're pretty excited, so it must not be all can't be all bad.
I mean, I just love Elsa.
Mm-hmm.
And my kids love Elsa, and I'm ready for her to succeed again. I'm ready to learn all about her ice and her diamonds and her air and her fire, or whoever's air and fire.
The second clip that they show is a longer cut of one that is shown in the trailer. In it, Elsa runs headlong into the dark and ominous water and the crashing waves. This clip shows an intense and graphically satisfying magical battle between Elsa and a horse-shaped water spirit on the spirit's home turf. All this via Variety. So I guess we're getting a more fleshed out battle scene during this moment. And that sounds really exciting. But yeah, not a lot of plot in this clip.
Yeah, and honestly, I know we touched on the whole the horse in the water and what is it kind of a thing, but I don't know if it's like, maybe if she's learning to control it because she can't control like her powers. Did she create the horse on accident? Like she created Olaf so many times before she discovered how to control her powers?
I don't think, that's meant to be a question whether she created the horse. Because the horse spirits are something from Norse folklore, and they're often described as luring people to their watery demise. So it seems like that might be, what Elsa's discovering here, where this horse is like trying to kill her for some reason. Uh, but clearly doesn't. But yeah, why is it a threat? This goes back to the disconnect between the people and the elements, and I think the overall theme of this film is going to be, drum roll, environmentalism.
Right?
What do
Huh?
you think about that? Mm-hmm. I think
Like,
this is.
how so? Like, you mean like they're trying to teach people all the things that the environment gives us?
Yeah, magic comes from nature. Spirits exist in nature, and people's abandonment of their roots in nature have led to these spirits growing hostile, leading to things like the necks that attempt to drown people, these horse spirits, and maybe some of these haunting voices that cause confusion for Elsa. Some of these other elemental effects that we see throughout the trailer, like the fire going out of control, threatening people, these giant rock monsters, all these different things that appear to be a threatening presence in the film stem from the fact that humanity has lost its touch with nature.
Yeah, and also I know that there was the stones, but I'm thinking, as far as the first movie was concerned, like Kristoff's trolls, like we know that they're a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have the elements, or are they just the knowledge of the elements? I don't think we'll be seeing a lot of them in this.
They reference these crystals in the first film. One of the child trolls is like, "I just earned my fire."
Ring. I started singing like the baby in in the first one. I was just being,
oh, and I don't see no ring.
See no ring, like that one.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always singing on the podcast.
Mm-hmm. No, so they have these glowing crystals that they wear. One of them talks about earning her fire crystal, and I'm guessing that's just one of the several types of crystals that they collect, like merit badges.
Girl Scout style.
Mm-hmm.
Patches.
Yeah, the trolls will be a pretty big factor in at least giving us an understanding of what is at stake. And the trolls weren't the most popular aspect of the first film, but I'm totally okay with them being a significant part of this film if that's what the plot demands. I know that that battle sequence that they showed was probably meant to showcase a lot of the effects that were developed for this film. Got a lot of really sophisticated cinematography going on in these trailers, and I guess physics effects, particle effects. These the water that we see, the beach, and all of its detail. So I don't know. Any thoughts on the animation and visual effects seen in these trailers?
I said it last time that I touched on it. It was before one of our other episodes. I was interested in like how dark it was. I felt compared to the first movie, it just had a different ambiance, and I'm obsessed with their outfits. Their outfits are amazing. I'm so ready for the purple dress. Yeah, I think the animation is great. It's not really my expertise, if I have to mention it, but I think it's very, very, very interesting, and it's very, honestly, like there's lots of things that are within other things. So I know that makes no sense to anybody that's not in my brain, but the like smoky atmosphere. I always think it's interesting when animation has so many layers that if you like try to look through it, you can't figure out where one thing stops and another thing starts because it's so intertwined. And I am so amazed by the technology that these animators have every day. I know we touched on it with Toy Story, how far animation has come, but Frozen just blows me out of the water every time. The first one and this one. I'm just always like, wow.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that as I've said before on this show, if the plot and story notwithstanding, I'm just going to be blown away by this film on pure visuals alone. So you couldn't hope for like a better result than that. Because, I definitely had a lot of doubts going into this, the take of, I don't know, a Disney sequel. Will they come up with something that lives up to the original? However, they took plenty of time. I mean, it'll have been 6 years since the original Frozen. So clearly they didn't rush things.
I feel like my niece is still watching it on repeat.
Yeah. So I think we're going to see something similar to what we did with Toy Story 4, where, I mean, I've been wanting a sequel to Frozen from, day one.
Before the first one comes out, Philip's like, hey, Disney, when's the next one?
From December 22nd, 2013, the day I saw Frozen, I've ever since then have wanted a sequel. But it didn't necessarily seem obvious that there would be a sequel. None of the other princess films, fairy tales, have had theatrical sequels. But it seemed natural.
Little Mermaid 2 dreams come true. Or what is it called? Cinderella. And Cinderella had 2 of them. Sorry to correct you. I'm just obsessed with The Little Mermaid 2. I don't remember what it's called. So I'm clearly so obsessed with Melody in Life.
Those were all direct to video, and didn't. Mm-hmm.
Okay, gotcha.
So as far as
smart as Philip, obviously, knowing different things that I'm supposed to know for being on here.
No. Those are definitely sequels, but there is like an official list of films produced by Walt Disney Animation Studios, and I think Frozen 2 will be the 58th. I think Ralph Breaks the Internet was the 57th, if I'm not mistaken. But the only sequels that are in that group of 57 films are Fantasia 2000, Rescuers Down Under, and Ralph Breaks the Internet.
Huh.
So Frozen 2 is a bit of an exception in terms of the history of Walt Disney Animation Studios. They don't typically do these full scale sequels.
That is interesting. I didn't even think of that.
Mm-hmm. But yes, they took their time. It'll have been 6 years. With Toy Story 4, it was 9 years, but they took the amount of time they needed to ensure that they had a story that was worth telling, and that seems very reassuring. I mean, if they do more Frozen after this, I don't want direct to video style, and I don't think they would do that. But I don't want to have to wait another 6 years either, so it's a bit of a dilemma.
Philip's grace powers are like jingling. Like, I can't wait.
We'll see. I've got faith, and we'll be getting plenty more Disney goodness and Pixar, of course, in the future to tide me over. One rumor rattling around regarding the future of Walt Disney Animation. The rumor is that they are working on another feature that involves dragons. So what do you think about that?
That is Huh. Wow. It's like I don't know anything about dragons.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm excited for the ride that will come out of that movie. I think Disney's just getting a little like darker. They're getting a little more less life is the bubbles and more like we're gonna do whatever we want because we're Disney, which I love. I'm a little nervous about it because I'm a little bit of a daisy, but I think it's great.
Well, plenty of levity, I'm sure, in these films. I mean, Frozen had just so many great jokes. I'm sure that trend will continue, even if there's some darker subject matter to go alongside it. I wonder, though, if this rumor I heard regarding dragons could also relate to Frozen, because I wouldn't mind seeing dragons in Frozen.
As like some of that makes their world a lot more enchanted, I think, with all of these elements and then dragons on top of it versus the last movie where everyone was like coming by ship and they took 12 days to get to Arendelle. Like it's a very different world, but I think they could make it work. And if Disney tells you there's going to be a dragon in Arendelle, like, you'll just believe them. You'll just say, okay, I believe you. I get it. It's part of the show.
Maybe in the Enchanted Land.
Yes.
Well, at any rate, I think with these symbols that you see representing elemental powers, that could be what leads to perhaps other characters receiving powers or Elsa receiving more powers. There's just a lot of strange stuff going on in Arendelle. So I think sky's the limit for what could come from that. I don't think we'll see Anna and Elsa's parents other than in flashbacks and maybe as like magical conjurations within the mystical realm. That'd be kind of cool if we saw them as like Force ghosts.
Or the horse, which I'm still forever wondering, till November 22nd. I'll be wondering, is that her dad? I need to know.
Well, November 22nd. There was an article that came out a while back from Cinema Blend, 9 months ago, regarding the writing of Frozen 2, and that Kristen Bell herself made some contributions to the development of her character, Anna, in Frozen 2. She sat down with Jennifer Lee, and Jennifer Lee said to Kristen Bell, "You had a hand in creating this character. What do you think her next step would be? What's her next hurdle, her next epiphany? What do you go through that's similar to her?" And Kristen had a lot of things to say. She didn't go into too much detail, so as to avoid spoiling anything. But I find this very encouraging that they're going to people, who experience real life struggles, especially the people whose lives reflect most closely the characters of Anna and Elsa, for inspiration to determine, the future of these characters. Kristen says she'll be able to say more when the movie comes out, but there are a lot of very intimate moments for me in this movie that feel like they're from my real life. Songs specifically that were like, I just gave her a spiel about why this particular emotion or this particular hurdle in my life was so important and what it taught me. And she slid it seamlessly into the character. It's not just episode 2 of the show. It's something you need to see them go through because it affects the audience. And this just really makes me excited. I don't know about you.
I think it's exciting. Kristen Bell's a lot older than Anna. No shade, no tea. She's fine. She's great. But I do think that she's a lot more mature than these characters, and I loved Anna's innocence. I think it's really interesting that we're going to get to see her grow so much. I just hope she doesn't grow up too fast.
It's a good point. Thanks so much, Hannah, for chatting about this. I don't know, any other thoughts on Frozen 2? I'll let you have the floor.
Sure. I think it's just exciting. It's a whole new world. Just kidding. I'm ready for it to show us more. I'm sure there'll be more trailers that we can touch on later. I'm really excited to see all of the new news, and I'm so ready to experience Elsa and Anna in a whole new way.
Yeah, I think we covered pretty much, so, elements, Kristen Bell, dragons. There's a lot that we don't know, and I know neither of us are too big of fans of the idea of Elsa learning more elements, but they could do it in a convincing way. No indication as to who this voice could be that Elsa's hearing. We are obsessing all the obsession over this, and it's been very fun. So thanks so much for listening to the Thoughtcast, conversations about animation. Hannah, where can folks listening find you?
Well, Thoughtcasters, you can find me on Instagram at Hannah Lee Ever After, and Lee is spelled Leigh, so Hannah Lee Ever After, like fairy tales.
Wonderful. You can find me, Philip Elke, at Philip Elke on Twitter and Instagram. Visit Thoughtcast.com. Follow Thoughtcast on social media at Thoughtcast. And find us on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio. And happy 4th of July. Warm hugs to all our Thoughtcasters. I love that term. And thank you so much, Hannah. You all have a magical day and a wonderful week.
Thanks for having me, Philip. Bye-bye.